what's in for you today, our Agile and Transformation stories. So we have prepared our key milestones of our transformation. So how everything started with our first pilot, then the extension to additional teams, the importance of getting individual teams to Agile release trains, and last but not least, also the outlook to enterprise agility, where we hopefully will be all part of soon. Well, it takes time. And it takes really time. So it's nothing that is just done overnight. I personally also believe you always have to keep transforming and reinventing yourself. So the definition of when are we done might be a little bit tricky. I think it's really important to understand to make these small steps, and it's important also to be very conscious that you will have success and you will also have setbacks. So this is how we show it with a kind of wave. There are good days, there are days you might say, you ask yourself, oh, why are we doing that? Where do we come from? It's about 6 years ago. We were in the middle of the ITL, so IT Infrastructure Library transformation. So why did we do this ITL transformation? At that time, we realized that we are not speaking the same language with our partners. It was the time we started to extensively collaborate, especially with external partners, to nearshore, to offshore, and so on. So we had a situation, we called something a change, and in fact, it was an incident. So it was a little bit tricky then talking with our partners. Problem management, we were not even aware what it is. And then we had roles like application manager. And for us, an application manager was not the same as for them. And we even had situation, we hired application managers, and they figured out that we have a complete different understanding of an application manager. So it was really, the scope there was to apply the standard processes and to start to speak the same language. One of the main challenges we were facing was requirement engineering. So we had the business units with their expectations, what IT should deliver, and believe me, they were never happy what IT delivered. Vice versa, IT was not happy either. Why? Because they have been defining requirements together with the business month after month. Another topic was speed. It took us forever, but really forever, to take every nitty-gritty decision. Some of you might remember we had change advisory boards, we had change advisory meetings, we have steerco meetings. Truly, everybody had to say something before you changed anything in an application. So then it was the time we got familiar with Agile and realized that we have to change. We have to change to be ready for the future. And we have to do this change to make our organization ready for the future. That was also the moment we started to play soccer like the kids on this picture. At that time, we had a team called LACE. Let's call it a backyard team. You know, it's like here in the picture, you don't really have rules, you don't have a predefined soccer playground and so on. We just started. And we brought together members of the IT organization at that time who had the passion to change. We spent quite some time discussing the why, and we created the so-called Agile Canvas. And this Agile Canvas then we brought to everybody. And I also remember that situation. We had a nice drawn, a nice flip chart, and we were all standing in front of that flip chart. So you can imagine how small the organization was at that time. We were not even 100 persons. And at this time, we encountered open ears. because what we were telling them, what was our goal with the Agile transformation, was exactly the things they were having challenges every day. So coming back to the question, what do you want to achieve? It's important that every stage, from the school or backyard team to a Champions League team, is a step that you need, and every step is a success.
We decided to go for some pilots. Some of the teams should try it out, this new approach, this fancy agile way of working, this Scrum. So those selected pilot teams, they wanted to become agile teams now, but they had literally no experience at all. Maybe there are some good tips and tricks that we could apply from our football coach, Marco. So Marco, we want to start playing in an official league now. What does it need to play on this big field?
So you're right. When it starts to get a bit more serious, means not only playing before school on an undefined field with satchels on the ground to mark the goal, then you need to have a more structured way of playing. So just having fun is not enough. And also when kids start playing in an official football team, they need to learn that there are different positions in a team, which of course also means different tasks and responsibilities. And just as there are different positions, there are also more and more rules. So not every player is allowed to touch the ball with his hands, right? And those rules might be at the beginning rather disturbing and fun reducing, but finally those rules ensure a common understanding between the players and teams, which at the end leads to a fair and good game. To bring those new rules and also position-specific training to a team, it's quite obviously that a coach is needed and very helpful. A coach has the possibility to observe the players differently and to bring in an outside view that the players on the field themselves may not realize. So those observations can lead to individual coaching and trainings for the players, and at the end also make them a better team.
So you can see there's a lot of what we just heard from Marco that we can apply as well to our IT world. So, for example, the preparation phase that we needed to start with Scrum at the beginning. We have written stories, we have written features, we had to conduct dozens of workshops and provide trainings to the full organization. Then there was a small thing, contracting with suppliers, our contracts were not made for collaboration together and changing priorities all the time. It was contracts with a fixed scope, and we had to change all of this as a first pilot. I think one of the greatest and best tips we can give today is that when you start an agile transformation, that you should get your coach in. So get someone that has done this already once. Get a coach from external, someone that really understands how to transform and what is needed as a preparation to start with working in Scrum. And that should be your coach, your guide. That's the key learning for me as well. Select a person that can judge exactly what is needed and name this person product owner. And the second learning is get a coach that knows exactly how you have to facilitate those meetings, how you have to transform, and name this person the Scrum Master. So I think some of the overall learnings from this first pilot phase is that Agile doesn't replace IT service management. So the ITIL implementation that we did, that Ariane mentioned at the beginning, that wasn't for nothing. We still need this. And we should look at this transformation with a bit of pragmatism. So not everything is needed just because it's written somewhere in a framework. So, keep it pragmatic. And then the topic of resistance that happened at the beginning quite a lot, quite often, people that do not know where their place is in the framework next. My best tip on that one is that you take those people with you and you show them that what we do works. So show them how they can influence the priorities of a team and how fast you can change those priorities as well. So this flexibility in agility, I've never seen someone that wants to go back, actually. So Some of the most heavy pain points have been solved that Ariane has talked about. So silos between business, IT, we have teared down in those pilot teams. And to be frank, honest, other teams started to like what we are doing, and they wanted to become agile teams as fast as possible too.
And that, of course, posed the challenge to us to form new awesome teams. And pretty sure that our football coach can give us some hints on that.
Well, team formation is really something very similar in team sports and in an agile team. The different personalities and the different strengths of the individual team members must harmonize in the best possible way. That's why it is important to know your own strengths and to try out different positions. And literally trying out, meaning play on different positions also in trainings. Try out an offensive position as well as a defensive position. Try to play on the left wing or on the right one, and so on. At the end, each player should know where he or she feels most comfortable and is at the end also most beneficial for the team. So in an agile team, we would speak about T-shaping, right? Which actually exists in football too. The broader a player can be used on the field, the more valuable he or she is for the team. The responsibility and load should be shared as evenly as possible in a team. For me as a coach, however, most important is still that we keep enjoying the game, that we celebrate success and deal with defeats together as a team.
But I tend to say very often, it's not so important if you want to have a good HR team, who is on the team. It matters more how the team collaborates and how effective the team acts as a team. And therefore, we really need this T-shaping, which is, of course, first a responsibility within the team where a Scrum Master can help very much. But also we tried on a more organizational level to establish things to foster this T-shaping. We tried to establish lean coffees where people could exchange on certain topics. We tried to establish community of practices where people with a similar expertise meet on a regular basis to exchange best practices and how they think how they did certain things in their environment. And we also established a very intensive training curriculum, which we still run and which is key from my point of view, that everyone knows what this whole HR mindset and the respective practices you're using is about. Start measuring from the beginning. So, and if you want to measure something like certain KPIs, like predictability and so on, always ask, why do you want to measure? So don't start to measure things just for the sake of measuring it. We talked about that we had this kind of idea, what do we want to solve with an Agile transformation? What is our vision? And from that, you should derive, how can I measure that? And then start from the beginning, even though your numbers might look awful in the beginning. It's good to have a baseline and to see this continuous improvement over time. And then another learning we had was we started with applying SAFe very early in the process, the Scaled Agile framework, perhaps even too early. Probably we should have started here and there a little bit smaller, because the issue we had there is when applying SAFe to more or less single teams is the SAFe big picture looks very much hierarchical. And so we had, of course, people coming from that old mindset with the hierarchies in their head who tried to pick the positions which looked most promising to them and were very much focused on that framework instead of how to become agile instead. So sometimes a smaller framework like less or even pure Scrum or even just Kanban, whatever fits best for your purpose, don't overdo it in the beginning. You can still scale up when it's time to do so. That's basically the way where we are standing now, what we are approaching next. And I'm pretty sure that a foundation for that is to have proper value streams identified. Based on those value streams, we then want to formulate arts with teams that have dependencies and same vision that support one value stream. And I also believe that a cadence across all those value streams will be key to properly implement that. That's where we are currently in, to get basically rid of those inter-team dependencies where teams tend to wait on other teams on dependencies.
I think what's always important if we're scaling, if we talk about enterprise agility, we have to remember some ground rules. Ensure that all the team members, you're talking the same language, that you have the same understanding of agility. Might have some with quite a lot, some are at the beginning. Get properly trained, create your backlog, then start to define definition of done, definition of ready, and so on. And our recommendation is to take at least 8 weeks before you start to sprint. What is also important that in SI, but even in Siemens, I mean, we have so many high performing agile teams. Still, many of them are isolated. So we're still playing in this kind of 3 playgrounds instead of this one big playground as we know it from a Champions League games. So we have to break these silos and we have to start to bring together what belongs together. So referring to Oliver, it's really about building this agile release trains along value stream is key. Why? Because it's important that these teams, they keep the independency, but they start to plan together to increase the value and to gain speed. So why enterprise agility? We have all to increase speed, reduce costs at the same time, while keep on adapting to continuous changes together with empowered teams. And what is also important and somehow part of enterprise agility as well, we all found ourselves in the Great Resignation, where it's so difficult to keep and attract talents. So we better adapt if we want to keep and get the best people into our organization.